Daniel Reyes had never liked expensive places. The polished floors, the crystal lights, the way people smiled without warmth, it all made him uncomfortable. He preferred mud on his boots, wind in his face, and the honest smell of hay from his ranch. His world was simple: sunrise, cattle, and silence. Yet on a cold Thursday evening, his quiet life was shaken by a single envelope delivered by a courier, who looked confused, even standing near the wooden gate of his modest farm. Daniel wiped his hands on his denim jeans and opened the letter slowly. The handwriting froze him instantly. He recognized it. After 3 years, he still recognized it. Valeria, his ex-wife. The letter was short, almost polite. She was hosting an anniversary party with her new husband, Arturo Beltran, one of the richest businessmen in the region, and she would be honored if Daniel attended. He stared at the paper for a long time. Honored? Valeria never cared about honor. She cared about appearances, about status, about being admired. The truth was clear. This was not an invitation. This was a stage, and he was meant to be the joke. 3 years earlier, she had left him in the same farmhouse where he now stood. She said she was tired of living poor, tired of dust roads and old pickup trucks. She wanted luxury, fine restaurants, and people who wore suits even in summer. She didn't just divorce him, she humiliated him. She told everyone she had wasted years of her life with a man who would never be more than a cowherder. That sentence followed him everywhere. It reached markets, neighbors, even strangers. Daniel folded the letter carefully and placed it on the table. He wasn't angry. He was quiet, the kind of quiet that hides something deep. His friend Mateo arrived that evening and immediately understood something was wrong. Daniel handed him the invitation. Mateo read it and laughed once, not happily but bitterly. "She wants to show you off," Mateo said. "You're the proof she upgraded." Daniel nodded slowly. "I know." "Then you're not going." Daniel looked toward the sunset beyond the fields. The sky was orange, and the cattle moved calmly as if nothing in the world mattered. "Yes," Daniel said calmly. "I am." Mateo stared at him. "Why?" Daniel's voice was soft. "Because she believes she knows who I am. And she never actually did." The party was held at the largest mansion outside the city, a place with marble stairs, fountains, and imported palm trees. Luxury cars filled the driveway. Inside, chandeliers shone like a small galaxy above elegantly dressed guests. Soft music played, and waiters carried champagne glasses across the hall. Valeria stood near Arturo, wearing a red evening dress and diamonds around her neck. She looked perfect. She also looked restless. She kept glancing toward the entrance. Then the doors opened. A man walked in wearing a simple but perfectly tailored dark suit. Clean haircut, confident posture, calm eyes. Conversation slowly faded around him as guests tried to recognize him. Some thought he was a businessman from another city. Valeria froze. It was Daniel. But not the Daniel she remembered. He walked calmly across the hall, not nervous, not ashamed. People moved aside instinctively. Arturo frowned slightly, confused. Valeria forced a smile and approached him. "Daniel, you came," she said, her voice tight. He nodded politely. "You invited me." Arturo extended a hand with a faintly mocking smile. "I've heard a lot about you." Daniel shook it firmly. "I'm sure you have." Guests gathered subtly, sensing tension. Valeria raised her voice slightly so others could hear. "Daniel still works with cows," she said, laughing lightly. "He loves his simple life." A few people chuckled. Daniel looked around the magnificent hall slowly, then back at her. "Yes," he said calmly. "I work with livestock." He paused. "But tonight? I also came as the owner of the company that recently purchased the Beltran cattle export contracts." Silence. Arturo's smile vanished. Valeria blinked. Daniel's voice remained steady. 3 years ago, I didn't just keep my ranch. I expanded it, partnered internationally, built distribution centers. I never cared to talk about it. But your husband's company has been negotiating with mine for 6 months. A whisper spread across the hall. Arturo's face turned pale. Daniel adjusted his cuff calmly. "You see, Valeria, I was never poor. I was patient." He stepped slightly closer and spoke softly so only she could hear. "You didn't leave a poor man. You left a man you didn't understand." He turned toward the guests, smiling politely. "And for everyone enjoying the evening, life has a funny way of surprising us. Sometimes the person you underestimate is the one still growing." He walked away toward the terrace. Narrator tone. And dear viewers, if you enjoy emotional stories with powerful twists like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because the next part will change everything. Daniel thought he felt that night. Daniel stood outside on the balcony, overlooking the illuminated gardens. The night air was cool, but his hands were steady. He hadn't come for revenge. Not really, yet seeing Valeria again stirred memories he believed he had, buried beneath years of work and distance. Footsteps approached. Valeria. She stopped a few feet away. For the first time, she wasn't confident. She looked shaken. "You did all this, and never told anyone?" she asked. Daniel didn't turn immediately. "I didn't need applause." She swallowed. "Why didn't you tell me back then?" Now he looked at her. "I tried. You never wanted to hear about long-term plans, only immediate comfort." Her eyes softened. "I thought you lacked ambition." "I had ambition," Daniel said gently. "I just didn't have arrogance." For the first time, Valeria looked ashamed. Inside the hall, Arturo was speaking angrily on the phone. His company had indeed depended on the contracts. Daniel's enterprise now controlled. The power dynamic had silently shifted. Valeria's voice trembled. "You came tonight to humiliate me." Daniel shook his head. "No, you invited me for that. I came to close a chapter of my life." She looked confused. "Close?" Daniel pulled a small envelope from his pocket and handed it to her. Inside was a document, a charitable foundation donation contract in her name. "You always wanted recognition," he said calmly. "Now you'll have it. A hospital wing in your mother's hometown will be built under your sponsorship." "I funded it." She stared at him in disbelief. "Why would you do that for me?" Daniel's answer was simple. "Because once I loved you, and I refused to let my past turn me bitter." Tears filled her eyes. Not dramatic tears, quiet ones. "You became someone I don't deserve to know anymore," she whispered. Daniel smiled faintly. "No, I became who I was always becoming. You just left early." He walked toward the exit. Guests watched silently as the man once mocked as a simple cattle rancher left the mansion, with dignity no wealth could buy. Outside, Mateo leaned on the pickup truck. "Well?" Mateo asked. Daniel exhaled deeply. "I'm finally free." He looked at the stars over the dark countryside, the same sky he had worked under for years. Only now his heart was lighter. Narrator closing. And sometimes life's greatest victory is not proving others wrong, but proving to yourself that you never needed their approval. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel, because every story here reminds us patience, dignity, and hard work always speak louder than pride.